You want to learn how to put your own whiskey recipes together to be able to make your own recipes. Awesome, that's really, really cool. I've got a little tip here that can help you figure out what flavors you're going to put in there. How's it going, chasers? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. I'm Jesse, and this is still at the channel all about chasing the craft of home distillation and making it a legitimate hobby. All right, guys, I've been getting a buttload of questions lately about single malt, especially recipes, but whiskeys in general. What recipes should I use? What flavors should I put in there? Malts, specialty malts, how much, starting gravities, all of these sorts of things. So I thought I'd make a little mini series on how I go about it. And then if I sort of teach you the ideas, the method behind the madness, then you guys can go and do it yourself. I don't have to give you a recipe. You can go out and make your own. So this is going to be a little mini series. This is the first video in the series, and we're talking about flavor. And the reason for that is this is the process that I go through when I want to make a new recipe. It's the way I did it for beer. It's the way I do it now for spirits. And I think flavor first. I want to dial in the flavors I want to put in there, the ratios of ingredients I want to put to each other. And then I faff around later making sure that those ratios are logistically possible. And then decide on the exact amounts compared to the amount of water and all that sort of stuff. So today we're talking about the flavor. The stuff that you're looking at here is a little experiment that I've already done. And I'm about to walk you through what I did do. But really, before you get to this stage, before you can start testing different malts, different grains, whatever it happens to be, you have to decide, you have to get some inspiration from somewhere, right? So in this instance, for me, inspiration was literally digging through my grain bins and seeing what grains, what malted barley, what specialty malts I had sitting over there that I haven't really used yet. I want to figure out what they do. I guess what I'm saying is inspiration doesn't have to be something crazy. You can literally just go down to your homebrew store and start looking at different malts and take half a kilo home of whatever looks interesting, have a play with it. Jump online, look through their flavor descriptions for beer, just pretend that those flavors are going to carry over. Speaking of which, I think part of the reason we've got so many questions on this stuff at the moment is the Great Malt Collab has kicked off. If you don't know what I'm talking about and you're interested in working together as literally a worldwide community to do a much more scientific method in terms of getting flavors for base malts and what they contribute to whiskey, you're going to want to check this video out. So let me show you what I've done here, and we'll have a little talk about what's going to come next and what this means in and of itself. So pop a quarter cup of your specialty malt or base malt that you want to test into a pestle and mortar and give it a quick cracking. You're not trying to pulverize it, you're just trying to break the husks on everything. The reason I don't do this in the grain mill is because doing a small volume like this is really freaking tricky in one of those machines. Pop it into a glass jar and repeat the process with every base malt and specialty malt that you want to test. By the way, it is a really good idea to label these things now because they're easy to get mixed up later on. Next up, mix up a batch of neutral spirits to 50% ABV, and you're going to add 3/4 of a cup to each of the jars. Let the spirit sit for 48 hours, and then you're going to need a way to strain it. This little bad boy is actually made for cold brew coffee by Brewing in America, and I'm just trying it out, but it seems to work really well. I think I'm going to like it for macerations. I'm just rinsing out the glass and putting it back into where the maceration was so I don't have to relabel it. And of course, repeat for the rest of the malts. Now, work your way up and down the line of different malts and base malts you've got, tasting them, smelling them, nosing them, getting to know them, and deciding what flavors are in there. Next, grab yourself a calculator, a notepad, and a syringe, and you can start making a couple little test recipes. I find it easiest to work in percentages of a whole recipe for each malt. I'm doing little 20 ml recipes, so let's say I wanted to do a 65% peated, 30% Munich, and 5% Aurora. I'd do 20 times 0.65 to get 13, 20 times 0.3 to get 6, and 20 times 0.05 to get 1 mil of the Aurora for 20 mils in total. Here we go, guys. I've got the 4 samples here. These are the ones I made, so I can carry on tasting them, let them sit for a little while, see if I decide which one's best or not. Right now, I'm erring on the side of D. what obviously I haven't talked about is the actual, I guess, the creative process about what flavors are going to put with what. Now, I mean, yeah, sure, I guess there's some rules of thumb that you could put together that are going to help you try this out. But at the end of the day, man, the beauty is that you've just got the stuff here. Just mess around with it. Try some different stuff. Throw some things together. If you're completely blanking and you can't think of certain flavor profiles that when put together are going to give you something extra cool, steal them. Steal them from elsewhere. You know, go to the supermarket aisle, walk down the ice cream aisle, steal flavor combinations out of ice cream. Go for a walk through your local town and look at menus on windows and restaurants and look at different flavors that people are pairing together with each other. Drink whiskey and think about the flavor profiles that are in your favorite bottles and the different little sort of components that come together to make that whiskey what it is and why it's so special to you. So that's not something that I can really give to you. What I want to do before we get to that is talk about the limitations of this test and the advantages of this test. The obvious advantage, guys, is that you don't have to distill anything, you don't have to mash anything, you don't have to ferment anything. It is super freaking quick. You might have seen in the video where I made specialty corn by toasting it and putting it in a fry pan and stuff, this video here. You may have seen me do the hot water tincture. Basically, I teabagged the corn. Yeah, I like teabagging things. To get an idea of the flavors that those corn's giving off. Now, I think that's, you know, obviously it's an even easier method than this, but there's just something to, you know, to having the alcohol presence in the spirit as well, rather than, you know, a tea when you're trying to translate flavor from tea to whiskey. Now, you just heard me say that's sweet, right? Remember that this grain, insanely sweet, and all that sugar obviously would get fermented out, and then if it doesn't get fermented out, you get left behind on the still. So keep in mind, guys, that you need to kind of calibrate in your head when you're tasting these things to remove the sugar from the situation. It's not going to be as big and bold and sugary and dense. It's going to go far more towards the tannic, the acrid, the harsh flavors from what you have here. In saying that, you're going to be adding the wood in, and you're going to be getting, you know, barrel sugars and vanillins and all those sort of things as well. So keep in mind that different flavors are going to concentrate, different flavors are going to not make it through the still, something's going to get left in the boiler, something's going to concentrate when it comes over into your cut. You know, it's not a foolproof method, but it gives you an easy way to mess with flavor. Another tip is just to literally smell and taste. Like, this is whole barley, and believe it or not, you can just crunch it up in your mouth. Crunch it up, let it sit on your tongue for a little while, let it get, you know, wet with saliva, and then the flavor will come out, you know, about 30 seconds later, it'll suddenly hit you. All of these things are good. I've also heard the guys at Iron Root say that they make cornbread with the corn that they're testing. It's the first thing they do. It's not a direct analog by any means to what you're going to get off the still, but it gives them an idea if they want to mess with that corn and test it. The goal was to make a peated whiskey that wasn't clubbing you over the head with peat. And I wanted it to have these warm, caramelly chocolate, but not quite. So kind of like both sides of chocolate, right? Way down on the milk chocolate side, like crappy budget Easter chocolate that kind of tastes a little bit like Cremelta and cocoa powder. That makes it sound horrible, but I think you know what I mean. I want those flavors, and then I want the really dark, super dark chocolate flavors coming from these guys here. And in between, I want plum, and I want dates and raisins and figs and all those sort of characters going on. I almost want this to come over tasting like a sherried Islay, an Ugadal with less peat and more plummy fruitness. Now, honestly guys, the easiest way for me for this sort of stuff is just take a bloody stab in the dark. Like, have a look at there, have a smell of it, have a little play, and then just pick a number and go for it. The idea being is if this is your bullseye and you want to hit here, if you miss way out here, you have a pretty good idea how to get it here, right? So I started with 40% peat, 40% Munich, 5% Aurora, 10% Shepherds, and 5% lost light chocolate, which was probably, yeah, looking back on it now, that was not very smart. But, oh, wait, is this it? No, didn't think that smelled like it. Yeah, so this is a mess. It's mostly just the chocolatey, really dark molasses, almost burnt sugar sort of flavors taking over. So straight away I went to B and went and jacked it up to 65% peat, dropped the Munich to 20%, the Aurora to 5%, Shepherd's to 8%, and light chocolate down to 2%. So the chocolate's much more in line now. You know what, that's actually pretty good. I kind of like that. It's heading a little bit still towards the peat and both ends. It's got nothing in the middle. And the third one, I went with 60% peat, dialed it back a little bit, 20% Munich, 10% Aurora, 7% Shepherd's Delight, so I brought that back even more, and down to 3% chocolate. But I moved to the dark chocolate to try and push those flavors out a little bit from each other. On the nose, this is the best so far. Getting the most of the peat. Funnily enough, even though there's less peat in it than the last one, this is where all of the flavors from start to finish are starting to bridge from each other. So the one thing that I really dislike in whiskey is when you get a huge flavor spike and then it drops back down to almost water and then something else comes up. It's just a personal preference. I don't like it. I would rather things morph. D, I decided to split the chocolate up and go a little heavier with the Aurora, but way lighter with the Shepherd's Delight. This is 60% peat, 20% Munich, 15% Aurora, and 3% Shepherd's Delight, with 1.5% of each of the chocolates in there. That tastes the most like a whiskey to me. It's just much more balanced. The chocolate flavors are spread out into, after you swallow, you start getting mocha, and then it morphs into dark chocolate, and then that morphs into coffee, and then it sort of lingers on the overly burnt back to kind of bready toastiness at the tail end. At the front end, I've forgotten. So it's moved the peat into the middle of the flavor profile too, which is actually quite nice. So you get the maltiness and the graininess first, and then that ramps up into peat, drops back off into the fruit and the probably less of the plum actually, which is, I was kind of hoping to get more of that, but that's okay. Into the treacle and the Christmas cake. Americans, I don't know what it is that you do to your fruit cake, but that stuff is, it should be illegal. Dude, here in New Zealand, giving someone a fruit cake is actually a compliment. Like, I want people to give me fruit cake. Keep your nasty ass American fruit cake. New Zealanders, you know what I'm talking about when I'm saying this tastes like fruitcake, like Christmas cake. So just so you know too, team, I'm making this really complex with this many different things here, you know, kind of just for the hell of it, because I've got them here to play with, and I want to play with them. You could totally do this with just 2 malts, and then pick one and go 100% that one and 100% that one. Or, you know, put 3 things on the table and make a blend of 60-40 out of 2 of them. It doesn't have to be this crazy. Just saying. I need to do a huge thank you for the Patreons. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Especially the people that have been around like since forever. There are people still on the Patreon list that are there from day one. So yeah, that blows my mind. Anyway, if you're finding value in these videos, or the Chase the Craft podcast, or the website, or whatever it happens to be, and you would like to help support Still It, you can go to chasethecraft.com/support, and that is the place where you can find all the different ways that you can help me out, essentially. One of them, if it's right for you, is Patreon. The next step from here is just to pick one of these recipes and distill it and try it and see what happens. I'm going to go with D because I think that has the best chance of transferring over to a distilled product from this, and I think it tastes better now as well. But to get there, you've got to figure out, you know, the size that you're going to make, the kilos of each malt, the gravity that you want to hit, all of these things. That's what the next video is going to be about in this little mini series. If you liked this video, if it helped you out, or you just enjoyed it, please guys, give it a thumbs up down below, drop a comment, let me know what you think, share it around to any of your buddies that you think might enjoy it, and if you're not subscribed yet, consider hitting the subscribe button to get lots more content like this. I'm out of here. I gotta get this video edited for you. Keep on chasing the craft. I'll see you next time. See ya.